Hey, welcome to Two Seals and a Walrus. I am Sean Webb. We're in an empty studio today because we're still under quarantine for COVID, but we do have a new production schedule coming up. We do have guests scheduled to come out, and we do have a place that we're going to record our next episodes, which is going to be at a fishing cabin in the middle of the woods. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be epic. We may even do an episode on a boat while we're fishing. How awesome would that be? I think, have the technology to do that. All right, so anyway... couple of announcements before I give you an explanation of what this episode is and why it's coming out a little late and why we're putting it out in the first place. We need volunteers for Two Seals and a Walrus. If you know stuff about video and audio production, that's great. If you're just the gung-ho type of person who can get us some amazing guests, we're all for that. So, or interesting guests, it doesn't have to be A-listers like, a bunch of famous people or whatever, although that would be amazing if you do, but just some interesting folks to talk to about various topics of interest. So let us know. We're putting that call out there. Next, actually, before I even talk about this episode, I made, as part of the mind hacking happiness stuff that you guys know that, we connected because I wrote this book, etc. Turns out that I put together a 45-day Mind Mastery 101 course that was selling for $1,000, and people were not asking for their money back. It was just like 100% customer satisfaction guarantee. If you don't think it's awesome, just ask for your money and we'll give it back. No one asked for their money back. I reduced it, put it on sale sometimes. Well, now it's free for a while. If you want to go to mindhackinghappiness.com, you sign up for the 45-day Mind Mastery 101, you can have access indefinitely to that content if you want to go there and sign up. And take the 45-day Mind Mastery course. It's best in its class. I mean, multiple psychologists, multiple neuroscientists. I think the guys approve of the content as well. It's just a good opportunity for you to understand how your mind works, and then some magic things happen connected with your brain wiring that if you know exactly why you get angry about things or why you get sad about things or why you get afraid about things or nervous about things or fearful or PTSD or whatever it is, you gain an access and a vision into your own mind. Then there's some hardwiring cool stuff that happens to help you turn that stuff off and gain control of it. So check that out. It's free. I'm giving it away for free. There's absolutely nothing you have to do. No $0 at checkout. So go do that if you're interested in that. And it's my gift to you guys. Love you guys. Lastly, this episode that you're about to see was recorded before COVID, and I decided not to put it out in that the topic of this episode is about Eddie Gallagher. And if you remember, Eddie Gallagher was a Navy SEAL chief who was accused of some wrongdoing and had some other SEALs step up and provide some testimony that the Navy then used to try to prosecute Eddie Gallagher. The president of the United States stepped in with the incarceration of Eddie Gallagher and then the court-martial of Eddie Gallagher. And then at the point that he was cleared, the Navy was going to take his trident away and discharge him from the military. And the president stepped in again. And then Chief Gallagher stepped up and started attacking a lot of the people who testified against him publicly and is now writing a book and is being very vocal that these guys are liars and they had alternative motivations to speak ill of him, etc. And it turns out right before and during the recording of our episode about, hey, let's talk about the Eddie Gallagher situation, since you guys are SEALs and you may have known, turns out that our two SEALs know multiple people who are directly involved with the situation. And so I wanted to put this episode aside and say, hold on. Like, if we're besties with multiple people involved with this situation, let's get them on the show and get their point out into the ether, or their perspective out into the ether. And so we still do plan to do that. We still do plan to do an episode where we have these people on. It's difficult to manage this situation with having active duty operators who are supposed to have zero profile, media-wise, to get these guys onto a show, first of all, but two, to talk about something that's very personal, very personal to them, and now, unfortunately, very public. So we're gonna put a pin in that, so to speak, of planning on having an additional episode in the future. And of course, we also offer the opportunity for Eddie Gallagher to come and speak with us about his side of the story as well. But it blew me away at how close Doug and Ben were to multiple folks who are connected with this Eddie Gallagher situation and can speak to the character of the people who testified. And you'll see that coming up here in a couple of minutes. But yeah, hold on to your hats for this episode and the next episodes that we got coming up. There's some amazing stuff we got planned for you guys. Please support us if you can. Now, the first thing that you need to do is move your finger up and down. I know it fucking sucks to do, man. It sucks when you have to move your finger and click a button on your mouse or your device in front of you and share some shit out to some other folks. But they, when you're sharing cool stuff like this, people aren't going to mind. In fact, they're going to thank you for coming to their rescue and saying, oh my God, now I've got something really cool that I can watch until my favorite shows come back. They're going to love you for that. They're going to hug you next time they see you when you click and share and like this content and get this stuff out, because the algorithms are giving us zero love. It's going to be all you. If we succeed or fail, it's going to be all on you, on whether or not you clicked your little share button on your right or left hand, whichever you use, or maybe you use your toes. I don't know. Maybe you're weird like that. I don't know. I don't judge. So please do that, because we need to get a motivating force to get our content out there to other eyes, because the algorithms are just showing us zero love. Okay. Next, if you want to go to Patreon, it's patreon.com/TSAW and support us there. We got a couple of supporters. We're going to start putting extra content up there. I've got a ton of content that I just haven't organized that we're going to put up, which won't ever hit the YouTube channel. And it's good stuff. It will go up at Patreon. And so if you're a supporter for a couple bucks a month, whatever, $5 a month, buy us a beer. Otherwise, please know that we love you and we're doing this for you, our viewers, and our fans. Here's our episode. Hey, welcome to Two Seals on a Walrus. I'm your host, Sean Webb. Today we are joined, as always, by my co-hosts, two Navy SEALs. Ben Johnson on my right, Navy SEAL sniper medic, and to his right, Doug Moulton, United States Navy SEAL sniper. And today we're going to talk about a topic that you guys had asked us to cover. A number of you are interested in this, and you should be, because we actually have a really unique perspective on something that happened in the news recently. If you're unaware, United States Navy SEAL Eddie Gallagher was accused of murdering a young Afghani ISIS fighter, and during the securing of Mosul, and his accusers, this is a really public thing, President Trump got involved. His accusers were also Navy SEALs who had testified against him. And then they were going to put him in trial. They had him in confinement, and President Trump ordered his release from confinement. And then they were going to take his trident away and give him a discharge. And President Trump basically asked for the resignation of the Secretary of the Navy, who had shared some opinions about what was going on and the president's involvement and that he shouldn't, etc. And so this got blown up way huge in the news and in life, and is affecting a lot of people's lives, etc. But on the couch, we have two United States Navy SEALs who know the individuals involved in this story, and they went through buds under Gallagher as an instructor in San Diego, and went through buds with the individuals who were his accusers and know these guys pretty darn well. And so we'll be able to get a pretty interesting perspective on this, because there's a lot of gray areas in this story. Eddie Gallagher went on the Mic Drop podcast just recently and spent 3 hours sharing his side of the story of how he was wrongly accused, etc. We'll talk about that and get some reactions here. And this isn't the end of this story. It's a continuing saga that, Gallagher's now wanting to aggressively clear his name, including calling out the individuals that had accused him, etc. This promises to be an interesting hour for you guys, because we're going to give you a peek inside this whole situation from people who know everybody involved. And so here we go. I know, Ben, you were able to watch the Eddie Gallagher interview for 3 hours on the Mic Drop podcast. You said you watched it twice for all of the little nuances and things like that.
Yeah, you never catch everything the first go round.
Yeah. So basically what happened is this is the first time, I think, at least that I've seen, that Eddie has stepped out into the spotlight to say, I was accused of this stuff wrongly, and here's the motivation that I think these guys had to accuse me wrongly, and here's the motivation that the United States Navy had to prosecute me incorrectly, and that they wanted to save the face of the organization, and it was more of a PR play than anything else. And, from his side only, we need to understand there are three sides to every story. There's the first side, the second side, and then there's the truth. From his side of the story, he made a pretty compelling tale to first build the foundation that, he was an AJ squared away SEAL, he was an instructor, he was trying out for Green Team, and was passed over on the selection process the first time, but, was going up for it again. He was Sailor of the Year in the teams, he was Chief of the Year. He had no interpersonal problems or any discipline issues up till this last deployment. Really painted a pretty rosy picture, as anyone would, of their own service. But then, communicated it well. And he came off as a reasonable individual in front of this audience of folks that's, now soaring into hundreds of thousands of views to watch Eddie Gallagher tell his story of, I didn't do it, they didn't have any evidence. Their testimony changed over time. Their stories changed over time. These guys had it out for me from the beginning, was his story, was his position, in that he said, from the time that I arrived at SEAL Team 7 Alpha to try to take these guys, and I don't know what the measurement ruler was, but supposedly these guys were the worst platoon of the teams. And he took them from the worst to being the best rated platoon of all the teams. Again, I don't know what the measuring stick on that is, because talking to you guys, you said you're not sure what the teams were even rated or how they were rated or whatever. I'm sure maybe they could have been, but that it was a rosy picture. He took them from worst to first. He was this amazing sailor and amazing SEAL, and was at a very difficult deployment in Mosul, and changed the way they were operating to become more effective, and was getting nothing but attaboys from the top down on their effects in Mosul, etc. And that these guys who he named, so we're free to use their names because you guys know them anyway, we're probably going to use their names because you know them, but he called them out by name, and my note got put onto my phone. So he was saying that Dalton Tolbert, Dylan DeLay, Craig Miller had it out for him, that they didn't like his leadership style, that they had issues with where they were and how they were being rotated, and that they were being put in harm's way, etc. And that these guys were just, whatever, unreasonable. Now, to be fair, history is that Team 7 Alpha was the platoon that Admiral Green was upset with because of cocaine use that came out in the news. Rooftop drinking, which ironically Gallagher said he condoned or didn't mind when they were deployed, but that Admiral Green didn't appreciate at the time, and said there was a discipline problem, and the SEALs sent that letter to the Pentagon to try to reinstill some discipline in Navy SEAL teams, etc. So this is the platoon that Gallagher took over, and then he's accusing these guys of not wanting to bend to his leadership style, or maybe he was a little too rigid. Who knows what the story is there? But that he said they were out for him from the beginning, in that they tried to turn Craig Miller against him, who was the chief petty officer, LPO, I guess, over there, and they said that Gallagher has been dragging your name through the dirt, and Miller came to him and said, hey, did you say anything bad about me? And Gallagher said, no, I haven't said a word one bad about you, etc. That somehow these guys got all together and concocted this story to say, we want this guy gone, or whatever it is. And then it spun out of control, possibly, that Navy started taking it super seriously. Usually SEAL teams start to they discipline within their own ranks and they don't take things up the chain of command, etc. They handle their own problems. But this one got where naval intelligence got involved and started taking over. And from that point, it was out of their hands. And then all of a sudden, he was kind of quarantined and said, "No one's going to talk to you about this. No one's going to. You're just going to sit in this office." And then they brought charges against him, arrested him, invaded his home, pointed guns at his kids, drugged them out into the street. His kids are crying. Like, there's a bunch of bad shit that happened that I agree shouldn't have happened to Gallagher and his family. And then there was other issues about the prosecution side of this, trying to bug the defense lawyer's computer, which was completely inappropriate, and the guy was replaced. And he said, those charges would have been dismissed at that point in a civilian court, but the Navy kept coming after him at that point. You can go watch that interview. It's a pretty compelling interview in the Mic Drop podcast. We may use some clips, and we thank Mike in advance for allowing us to throw those up so that we can put some context to this stuff. And if I don't introduce these and we just throw them in, please be, forgiving of that. I just want to put some context to this discussion of, what Eddie Gallagher might have said in his own words, etc. But you guys went to Buds under Gallagher, and so you had a little bit of experience of interacting with him. But you guys actually went to Buds with Dalton Tolbert, Craig Miller, and not necessarily Dylan DeLay, but of him, that type of thing. And you can speak to their character, because what happened on the Mic Drop podcast was that Gallagher kind of did a character assassination of these three guys to say,
just honestly, man, can I just jump in?
Yeah. Well, let me ask this question, Doug. Do you know Dalton Tolbert, and give us a little background of what he's like as an individual, because he was one of the primary witnesses against Eddie Gallagher in this whole proceeding. So you know him, right?
Yeah, Dalton was my dive buddy, all Buds and SQT, graduated together. Craig was a classmate too. Two things I want to kind of step in with too. I wasn't there for this, obviously, so I try to be careful in speaking in terms of definitive truth, because my truth of the situation is never going to be accurate as reality, so I wasn't there. Right. So I try to be a little careful there. Second, if Eddie ever hears this, wants to come on, we'd love to have him to hear his side of the story instead of us just talking about it.
Yeah, seriously, and we'll give you a fair shake.
Yeah, we want to hear,
because there is three sides to every story. There's one side, the other side, and the truth, and we're sure that there are shades of gray on all of this stuff, and we're not trying to come to any conclusion on this stuff. We're just giving a perspective of having a unique perspective to share. Right?
Yeah. So Eddie checked into Buds as an instructor when I was in first phase. So I had him. I only had him for the last couple of weeks because he had just checked in.
Yeah.
To first phase before I moved to second phase.
Yeah.
I know Dalton pretty well, and Craig. So what was weird? People. I know it's not impossible, but I mean, those two guys were always solid dudes. They were always competent. Always had a good moral compass.
Always positive.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to wrap my head around the idea of them completely fabricating a lie to get rid of somebody. And the other thing that doesn't make sense, and maybe there's an explanation, is when you get back from deployment, you pretty much go to a different platoon, or you know what I mean? Yeah. You don't have the same leadership. So I don't understand why you would try to get rid of someone on deployment.
Like post-deployment, like coming back, and
the leadership changes. Doesn't make sense.
So the leadership changes, so it wouldn't make sense for them to make up a story to garner a leadership change when that's going to occur anyway, and you're not going to work with that guy in the future.
Especially if Tolbert was trying to screen, he made it, right? So
I guess, yeah.
So why would he give a shit?
Tolbert made what?
When he, I think one of the chief complaints was, one of the chief's chief complaints was that Tolbert wasn't put out enough because he wanted to work out for a green team or something.
Oh, right. Okay, so
if he's about to turn around and leave that team anyway.
Yeah, so Eddie did make the argument that Tolbert did come to him and said, this deployment schedule doesn't give me time to work out for Green Team. And so then he took him off duty roster for the next day and said, use that time to work out. Now, I'm sure, this is my assumption, and I'm jumping some rivers here. Somebody comes to me, it could be, you could certainly take this stance to say, you came to me and you asked for time off and I gave you time off. But, I mean, come on, here's the reality. We all know what it's like to deal with superiors, and maybe superiors with an attitude sometimes, where you come to them and you say, I need some time to work off Green Team. Fine, you're off tomorrow, go do it. And then there's a little bit of an attitude attached to that. And then there's a little bit of a, you gotta have time to work out. Now you're that guy. You're being treated like that guy, and you don't appreciate it, because what Gallagher reported, was that he given Tolbert the time off to work out, and then Tolbert came to him and said, "Come on, man, you're taking me off duty roster to work out." And then Gallagher's position is, you asked me for time to work out, I gave you time to work out, and now you're bitching that you're taking off duty roster, right? But here's the thing that Ben and I talked about. When you're dealing with stresses of combat or stresses of duty, et cetera, and you want to self-medicate, et cetera, you don't want to go to the shrink to say, I need help, or I want whatever, because then they're going to put you on limited duty, and there's a whole stigma attached to limited duty. Mm-hmm. There's a whole, other guys are looking at you like, you're slacking, and, fuck you, why are you getting special treatment, et cetera. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on that we're probably not akin or aware of.
My platoon, guys that were getting ready for the same process, everyone tried to give them a break where we could.
Yeah.
It's not, that's what you should do.
Yeah.
Make sure they do their job and be a part of the platoon, but, if there's some wiggle room for them to go get some extra time on the range, we always make sure they got it.
Okay. So you'd expect a Tolbert to try out for Green Team and maybe have a shot?
Yeah, I think he already made it.
Yeah, pretty sure you made it.
Okay.
Gallagher did not.
Yep. Gallagher got passed over.
Yep.
And was trying to apply again. Okay, so, and for the civilians in the audience, Green Team is what?
You got to get through to get on DANMEC.
Right. So that's basically on the way to Dev Group, SEAL Team 6.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and for the folks who don't know, there are a number of regular SEAL teams, and then SEAL Team 6 is the special ones. It's the ones you have to, it's the special assignments, exceptionally tough assignments, but you are a SEAL plus then a whole nother level of training and selection process to get onto a special unit. Everybody, talks about SEAL Team 6. There's a reason that they're special, because they have a higher level of training, et cetera. So
yeah, it's like when we deploy, I report to some senior person in the Marine Corps or Army. When SEAL Team 6 does anything, they report directly to the president.
Okay. And so we're talking about the accuser, who you say, at least at the time you knew him, was a stand-up guy.
Yeah, always, man. He was never the guy that cut out of stuff. He was always ranked pretty high in buds. Again, this is my years ago. It doesn't really seem within character as far as I know, but who knows?
Yeah.
Obviously, all the whole of the story doesn't add up. Just the part about trying to kick them out during deployment, to them completely fabricating a story. I don't know. Honestly, I'd love to hear from Eddie about that, because it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Well, you guys made a couple of good points previously when we were talking about this, in that, you don't wind up being accused and on trial for murder unless something happened. But then on the other side of it there's a great point that Eddie Gallagher made. If he did that kind of thing, and everyone saw it because it was out in the open with everybody there, and there's a picture that was taken of the whole platoon around this guy's body, which was inappropriate, etc. Why was it that only 3 guys stepped up to say that this happened when everybody else was like, I don't know?
Well, my issue is, character assassination is the weakest argument always, even if you're right.
Okay.
It doesn't, if you're trying to prove something, you don't highlight, I know this is an actual tactic, even in the court of law, but it's I don't know. It's a weak approach.
It's a really seemingly desperate pot shot.
Yeah, it's showing me subjective perspectives isn't going to help me understand the objective truth.
So it's like using anecdotal evidence to prove a concept or like a law or something.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, that happened to me, so it's got to be real. So,
It's like, officer, I haven't
be the one off.
Officer, I haven't been drinking and driving because I just wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I would never. I never have.
Yeah, and the other side of that is, I mean, you gotta know. At least I do, from my perspective. When I look at Eddie Gallagher, and I see him, he made Sailor of the Year, etc., Chief of the Year. He was an AJ squared away guy, but he's super hard. He came from an older group of operators that you simply perform to perfection, and you don't get any thanks for it.
The thing with that too, this always rubbed me the wrong way too, because the guys from that generation, whatever. I hate having the harder class competition.
So that's hard class.
That generation was also the generation where half the guys in every platoon had a DUI.
Or 5.
Right.
Yeah.
And they hadn't been operating for 15, 17 years straight in a wartime posture, on constant deployment, etc. They came from, you went and did Panama, and then you had some time to do some training, and then you went and did, Colombia, or and then you had some time off, and yada yada yada. There wasn't a you're going.
Well,
right.
Maybe the a lot of those guys are the ones that kicked off the war, and they got that, they got that experience, and they got all that going. But the guys that grew up in the Guam Bomb 90s, they weren't raised in that going.
Right.
The guys that are starting now are starting under the leadership of decades of learned lessons and modern, current, relevant combat experience. So.
I mean, every generation.
It seems like it just seems like an incongruent comparison when you're talking about, I started in the military in the Guam Bomb 90s with a conventional Marine force and a Fleet Navy job, and these guys should be like the way I remember.
Right.
Well,
it sounds like he was really hard. It sounds like he was a hard guy to be under his command, because it's like perfection is what you're expected to do. You're not going to get any attaboys, which is something that he had talked about on the Mic Drop podcast, where Craig Miller came into him, his LPO came into him, said, hey, the guys have done well. You guys have taken them from a bad rating from a team to the top rating, and they would love an attaboy. And he's like, fuck you. He didn't say that, fuck you, but he was like, I'm not going to, sorry. You're doing your job, congratulations, right? That's his position.
Yeah, I mean...
And that's a little unreasonable regarding...
He's allowed to be, but it's ignoring emotional intelligence of the situation.
Horrible emotional intelligence. Which is the number one qualifier for an exceptional leader, by the way, is being able to deal with the subordinates below you in an emotionally intelligent way.
Yeah.
And so he super missed an opportunity there. But if you're that type of person, then there's a little bit of hubris there to say, I'm doing everything right, you guys should do everything right, and you shouldn't give thanks for it, and I shouldn't have to give you praise for it, etc., which will create a bad culture.
Yeah.
To where, I don't know Dalton or Craig Miller or any of the guys, but I could certainly see how they could hold ill will against an individual like that who is not emotionally intelligent, because emotionally intelligent leaders, people don't like them. So, do I completely discount his "they didn't like me" defense? I don't completely discount it, because if you're in a highly stressful situation where you're getting shot at every day, when this commander is pushing you forward beyond the regular rules of engagement to say, we're going to go a little closer than the guidelines have told us to do, and you're going to think that we're putting you in harm's way, and I don't give a fuck about your feelings, and we're going to do this, it's my way or the highway, that's not setting up a...
We kind of talked about this before we got on air, and I don't know if Eddie was this type of leader or not.
Yeah.
But with my experience, in this category, there's kind of two types of leaders in the teams. There's ones that just want to get in a fight because their boys want to get in a fight and they want to shoot guns and try to kill someone. And then there's guys who are fucking smart about it and want to do it the right way.
Right.
I don't know which one he was. From what I gathered, I got the impression that his subordinates felt he was the one that just kind of wanted to get after a fight.
Okay.
Which, it's cool to fucking want some and get after it, but if you're not gaining anything, then you're just fucking trying to get shot. I mean, you can have zero training in the world and get shot. What do you fucking do? It's the smart guys that know when it's worth it.
Not hard to get shot.
Yeah.
Right. That's bad test. So.
Oh yeah, you got
But
shot.
here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. So from your perspective, though, then it would suggest that Eddie Gallagher's position on the Mic Drop podcast, where he's trying to character assassinate these guys, you're saying, wait, hold on a second, because these guys were some of the most squared away, good dudes.
If they weren't good dudes, I'd be like, yeah, they were fucking turds.
Right.
I would not hesitate.
As evidenced by, if you pass green team screening.
Well, I mean, like, you look at it, he's got screened, which means not only did he hit all the marks, but he had to have a good reputation from his previous platoon.
That's a key indicator.
So it doesn't add up.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that are in question, a lot of holes in the story from at least the Mic Drop perspective, the interview's perspective, that these guys were just, going out of their way to try to character assassinate this guy to get out from under him.
I just hate character assassinations. Even if I hate, even if you try to, we can talk about Trump. I don't agree or approve of a lot or most of the things he does, but if you try to tell me he's a bad president because he's not a good guy, fuck off.
You don't like the shit he says.
That's a weak argument. You can list 1,000 reasons why he isn't a good one.
Yeah.
But don't tell me about his character.
Yeah. I point to his decisions as the Syria thing and all of his decisions about, oh my God.
I don't think he should have got involved with the Eddie situation too.
No, I don't think so either.
Whether Eddie is completely right, completely wrong, anywhere in between, I don't think he should have been involved.
Right.
Since when is Trump altruistic?
Right. You're right.
Sorry, that one doesn't add up either.
Well, we can sidebar that. I think Trump sees a headline and wants to get involved.
Yeah.
So he saw the headline about the Navy SEAL.
Yeah. Did he read every fucking eyewitness report before he made his decision?
No.
Yeah.
Right.
He shouldn't have been involved.
So, and I don't agree that. I mean, I do agree that it's really iffy that. You're asking, the selection process for SEALs, you need to understand there are multiple phases that you go through. The first of which is, BUDS, which is one everybody hears about, that is designed to kill you and make you want to quit. And test your physical mettle, but also your mental mettle. And that's the one that everybody says, you get through BUDS and you're a SEAL. Not true. Not true. There's a much longer selection process beyond BUDS.
We had dudes quit in SQT, which is the section of training after BUDS.
Right, and so
at the end of it.
Right, and so you've got this selection process that also includes psychological, testing and batteries and reviews and et cetera, and they're watching you the whole time throughout your entire training, and you've got to be a decent dude, who other dudes want to be.
I mean, there are turds that slip through it. In any organization, there's going to be turds.
Right.
But generally speaking, it's a built-in mechanism to filter the turds out.
The impurities. And so, in this case, you've got 4 guys who come up and say a bunch of stuff. The one thing that got him in trouble was that he supposedly killed this kid who was bleeding out, etc., in Afghanistan, and did so with a knife, etc. And the evidence that he basically supported the prosecution on his phone was that he sent a picture of him with the kid and with the text to his buddy back in San Diego said, "Oh, interesting story on this one. I got this one with my hunting knife." So, I mean...
Wait, that was whose defense?
Gallagher sent that text.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I thought you were saying he was using that as defense. I was like, that's...
No.
Okay.
And so he said he took responsibility for that, etc. But, I mean, here's the thing. If you're in the heat of the moment, and let's talk about, you're in that war-fighting stance, it's not unreasonable to see somebody who might have lost control a little bit, for him to be that person who may have, out of character, lost control and said, "This kid's bleeding out anyway, let's do something fucking gung-ho," grabbed his knife and ended the dude. Maybe even considering, because this is the testimony of the guy who got
immunity, and he said he put his finger over the breathing hole of the trach tube so that the guy would expire, because if they handed him over to the locals, they were just going to torture him to death. And so he would rather have him, like, humanely euthanized, so to speak, rather than passed to the locals who would dismember him live. There's an argument that if he was the guy who actually, rather than the guy who gets immunity and says, oh, I killed him, that's a lie, supposedly. It could be reasonable to say that Gallagher lost control and with a knife did the same thing.
So is Gallagher defending that he stabbed him with a knife, even though he sent a picture?
He said he didn't.
Even though he texted someone a picture?
He texted somebody, but here's the thing, he texted somebody a picture, and even in the video that they got, somebody had testified.
Yeah, I know someone said they did it, right?
Well, someone had testified that when they saw him stabbing the guy, there was bleeding, spurting out all over the place. There's no blood on Gallagher. There's no blood on his knife. There's no, whatever. So one of the testimonies doesn't fit the evidence that exists.
You could definitely stab someone and not get blood on you.
Right.
Or wash it.
Right. So who knows? Right.
Why did he send that text then?
Right. Why did he send the text?
Yeah.
And how does he wind up in front of a military tribunal for murdering a guy with multiple witnesses? Because here's the other thing. Stuff happens that is outside the regular bounds of military protocol. And the SEAL teams handle it internal.
Yeah. Or maybe just don't text a picture like that over unsecured net, so. I mean, like, seriously, like, that's, I mean, whether he did that or not, that was dumb as shit.
Yeah. Now, Craig Miller was one of these guys.
Dumb.
You guys said you went to Buds with Craig.
Yeah.
How is he as an individual?
He was good. He was always competent.
Polite.
Yeah, very polite. Not one of the more, he wasn't a loud guy. Nice, competent. We always liked him.
Somebody would make up a story?
I don't think so. I mean,
It's tough.
it's possible,
tough
but
inference to draw.
Yeah. It's hard for me to imagine that.
Okay.
I'm not going to say definitively, but I mean, from what I know, I would be surprised if he fabricated the entirety of what he said.
So what did you guys hear? When this came out, I sent you a text and I was like, hey, there's a guy, a SEAL team guy who's being accused of murdering an ISIS fighter. And I was like, question mark. Okay,
yeah.
Isn't that why you're sent over there in the first place? Right. And then you're like, well, I heard that it may be a little more complex than that. He might have fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch the podcast, but I've read pretty much every article and report that's been released.
Did you get any communications from anybody in the teams?
Nah, I didn't. I was going to text Dalton, but I figured he had enough on his plate and enough people bugging him.
Okay.
So I just want to let him be. I figure he's getting blown up.
Probably talked about it enough.
Yeah.
Now, Ben, who do you know that's involved with all this?
I know the same folks, and then
Has the OIC been named yet?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, he was like implicated in obstructing justice, but I can tell you right now, whatever Jacob Portier decided to do, he did not decide to do with Ballas.
Okay, so Jacob, give us a little background of what's going on there for the people who don't know.
Jake Portier is a like straight up outstanding gentleman. Like, he does not do shit like that. He's a go-getter.
And how is he implicated?
So check.
Is he being accused of something?
I guess to some degree he's being accused of obstructing the investigation by not cooperating.
Well, I think he tried to save everyone. I think he tried to help his platoon,
which is ironic because when he was,
which is why he got in trouble. I think
when he checked in to go to Buds, we were already out of Buds, and I think we're about to finish SQT.
Yeah.
And he lived with me and our OIC that was in Buds that always put me in charge.
Okay.
And we kind of, I don't know, we kind of gave him some insight as to what he was getting into, and he just had this he was always excited, he was always positive.
Yeah.
He was always, he worked hard as man, it was really fucking easy to justify backing Kevin on just about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I saw Jacob having so much success, like that he even adopted that, or at least he, maybe just blowing smoke up me and Kevin's asses. But he said that one thing that he always remembered through training and through selection and through until we parted ways. And I went to the East Coast. We haven't seen each other since, pretty much. But one thing he always said up until that point was like, "Hey, man, you guys said look after the guys, and the guys look after you." And he's like, "That's the best advice ever."
Yeah.
So it's of no surprise to me whatsoever. As soon as I heard his name implicated and what he was implicated with doing, with covering his guys that he was responsible for, and ultimately attempting to, with all the might of his power, to preserve the public impression of a unit that is not supposed to be under public scrutiny.
Right.
That not only made sense to me, but that was actually like an incredibly respectable route, knowing full well what Eddie was going through, the implications that he was facing, and the potential outcome and disruption to not only his platoon and his life, but the entire community that he's been over backwards for.
So what specifically is he accused of? Do you know?
I don't know the specifics of it because I don't think it's appropriate to bring it up, given the nature of the public involvement with it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even have fucking stones to put him on the spot and ask him to tell me. I feel like if it was important enough that he felt like it was appropriate to bring it up, then him and I would have a conversation organically that developed in due course.
Yeah.
And since that hasn't happened, I don't see any reason why it warrants some further discussion.
Okay, so this is
he hasn't crossed the finish line with that situation, right?
No, I don't think so.
So the Navy's still trying to prosecute people connected with this whole situation.
Well, if Eddie has any validity in his story, which I'm assuming he's got equal validity that the other party does, without any actual tangible proof of either side, from my perspective, I think they're both equally culpable and valid on both sides. So it's astonishing to me that all those guys haven't experienced a similar circumstance. I mean, it's unlike the military to pick and choose favorites when they're punishing people. They tend to really enjoy public massacres, but only within the military. They don't. It's a weird thing to see the way that they're harping on silent professionalism, but they're publicly castigating their own highly effective, highly respected, and very, very, very well maintained and manicured best asset they have, especially the Navy. The Navy don't have battle space right now. The Navy's got submarines that flex and a lot of expression of power over the sea, and then some degree of expression of power from the sea to land via aircraft. So that's not the most important thing in the world when you are stealing all of the ops and combat battle space from the other two major services that have led that fight for forever with a unit that's only been alive since 1962. That seems like something worth preserving and maintaining and keeping your dirty laundry in house. You know, I don't go around and tell everybody every time I get in a fight with my significant other, and then like put it on the fucking news so that it just doesn't make sense. So I'd like everybody loving and respecting the one I'm going to marry.
Does that make this strange that you've got three guys, and does that add some validity to the charge that you've got three stand-up guys, or at least two that you guys have said are good dudes, or used to be good dudes at least. Whoever knows what's happened from then to now, but
I don't see what happened from then to now as being is relevant, because
I mean, unless something happens psychologically, you're not going to have a character change. You're not going to go from being a good dude to being a shitbird.
And not three of them. So it seems community based. So the validity where I see on Eddie's side is the fact that it's three good dudes banded together either means that they're definitely telling the truth, or they're definitely conforming to a community-based issue and a systemic problem with the way they conduct business as the entire community. And Eddie brought it up, and he brought it up as if it was almost like a good thing. He was like, yeah, used to, guys would this, that, and the other, and it doesn't matter what he's talking about. The point is it's used to guys are like this, and that's what they should be now. It's like, what? Yeah, well, like Doug was saying, used to guys had DUIs. Used to, guys would commit egregious war crimes and it would go unnoticed and unpunished. And, used to, guys didn't do a tenth of the fucking training or have even a fraction of a percent of the knowledge that the newest guys have now because of all the shit that they did later in their career. So you can't hold them responsible for. I don't still believe in Santa Claus.
Right.
I don't conduct my life as if Santa Claus is a real fucking thing.
Well, you used to back in the day, so
Never mind. Sorry, my bad. So Santa Claus, he's obviously real. So we need to be aware of that.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: Does being Sailor of the Year grant you any kudos or bear any weight at all in this?
So get this. I used to, guys would make fun of the Fleet Navy for their queer traditions and their nerdy, almost like bully treatment worthy lifestyles because of how stupid the regular Navy was. If you said some shit like that these days, you might actually get locked up for some stupid shit like that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised about that. So what he's saying is, used to guys acted like this, but I was Sailor of the Year. It's like, all right, well that's a regular Navy thing, man.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, used to guys didn't have haircuts and they didn't wear uniforms and they would fucking flip off the fucking camp commandant before they ever rendered a fucking salute. Do you want your platoon to walk around like that, or are you trying to tell us that you really respect the Marine Corps because they got clean haircuts and a structure?
Right.
Like, what do you mean used to?
Right.
Like, you can't pick and choose the shit you used to like and then expect everybody to just understand and know that and then adhere to it.
Yeah. The thing that sticks in my mind is that, okay, maybe your defense of they didn't like me, so they wanted to get rid of me.
But that's not surprising either, because guys didn't like me. And one guy, that Simple Jack, little rock biter guy, he tried to have me put on suicide watch because he didn't like me and he couldn't figure out a better way to do it.
Oh yeah, shit, I remember that.
He actually had me like formally placed on watch by the only head doctor at NSW, a middle-aged white lady, and I had to go see her for a reason I didn't understand, and then she started asking questions about if I was going to hurt myself or others. I was like, I know what this is. Who's put you up to this?
So your argument supports the defense that they wanted to get rid of me, that it could occur.
Surprising.
It could occur with individuals, but then Doug, you say these guys pretty well, and it would be highly surprising to you that they would make something.
It's not impossible, but it's out of character.
Because that's a stupid man tactic. That's
it's a dumb man tactic.
That's a lazy last resort, like last ditch effort, swinging as you're falling tactic when you don't really understand a better way to go about this and finesse your way through the system. So it's clear that like those guys aren't stupid people.
Right.
I don't know Eddie personally.
Also, why
so
would
I
you
can't
get rid of
say
somebody
Eddie's stupid.
when you're gonna separate from that?
It just doesn't. There's no motive. Like in order to prosecute for a crime, there has to be a motive, right?
Right.
So that's like basic criminal prosecution 101. There has to be
the motive doesn't make sense.
Yeah, there isn't one.
Motive for people making a story up. The motive doesn't make sense.
As far as I'm concerned, there isn't tangible proof that there is a motive because it's all hearsay anyway.
Yeah.
What he's saying is people said that they didn't like him. Not that they said they didn't like him,
right.
But other people said that they said that they didn't think that he would, whatever. It was all speculation out of the gate.
Right.
So he's speculating that there was a very shaky, if a completely non-existent motive in the first place for them to basically put their leader, their former leader, behind bars over however many months of time.
Yeah, there's easier ways to get rid of a leader.
Yeah, let them fuck themselves out of it.
Yeah, or just
leave.
Wait a couple months until you go to your next job,
or a week. How long after deployment before?
That's what
some of those guys might not have even been in that platoon anymore already.
Yeah.
But so that's the point. Both sides have so much bullshit caked on because of the public's involvement that the only thing that we know for sure is the fact that the public was involved means that we'll never know.
Yeah.
Well, it's somewhat water under the bridge at this point, except for Eddie now going really great guns offensively to try to clear his name,
which to
also
me
not surprising. But that
doesn't help his case.
It doesn't help it.
And if someone's accusing you of shit, you don't fucking go on a public affairs tour talking about how shitty they are. Like that doesn't make anyone look good.
If your old lady was like, "Hey, have you been sleeping around?"
and then you spend the next week arbitrarily bringing up how many times you don't sleep around. At the end of the week, she's going to be like, let me see your fucking phone. You know?
Yeah.
Fair point.
It's like there was this one chief that we were pretty sure was gay, which is like I don't care. I don't give a shit. I don't care.
Him and about half the other fucking dudes.
Yeah, again, to be clear, I don't give a shit if people are gay or not. But he was always a dude that was like, I just love women.
Man, I want to suck some titties.
And then like he really did shit like that.
It was so off.
Oh, it was so weird. We're like, man, he's gay, dude. He's
like, hey, you want to suck titties? You haven't told us in 2 seconds. Like, why don't we hear about that?
Well, come on. I mean, that's standard operating procedure. You know, you find those guys who are, put out of the GOP, right? They're always the ones who are, let's pray the gays straight. Let's fund these programs.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how I'm so not gay.
That's sad, actually.
And then they wind up being gay, and then they wind up leaving the party because they're the most anti-gay individual in the party, and then they wind up being found out to be gay.
It happens so much.
They get caught in a Motel 6 with a 17-year-old dude that they picked up to get a blowjob or whatever, and then they got to leave the party because they're going great guns because they don't want to be found out, right?
But yeah, his stuff like on Eddie's stuff on Instagram about, man, you don't go on a slander spree to show everyone how good of a guy you are. Like, man, that's not how you win that argument.
Yeah, you don't think you're a pacifist by beating up the dude that called you violent.
Here's a good example. It's a parable, but it's a real story. My second platoon. So the end of my first platoon, I injured my back. So I was in physical therapy the very beginning of my next platoon for a few months. I mean, like I fell down I collapsed in our kitchen.
Oh yeah.
So my back was fucked up. So anyways, there was one day, I'll make this quick. There was one day I was doing my physical therapy stretches and core stuff in the gym. Because I was doing it 3 days a week. And 2 of the days I'd go into the gym by myself and do the exercises. 3 of the days I was actually with the physical therapist. And there's one day that actually you, Ben, and 3 other dudes were doing, just set up shop next to me in the gym, which was cool. We were talking. I was doing my little physical therapy stretches and stuff. And they were doing deadlifts. We were just talking. Our brand new senior chief walked by, made a snap judgment that I was lying about going to physical therapy to get out of work. Went to my LPO and was like, hey, fucking tell Milton, don't be a shitbag. I saw him lifting. And I was pissed because I was like, I didn't touch that weight. He just made an association in his head.
Right, and it probably has a lot to do with the fact that every time somebody's around me, they're definitely doing something wrong. And then also, we were in the physical therapy gym working out.
Yeah.
Right,
Anyway, so I was a little PO'd, ticked off. Wow. So I was a little irritated because I didn't touch weights for months. I literally didn't touch weights.
Right.
And so at first I wanted to go talk to the senior chief, hey, I didn't, what'd you see? I didn't do that shit, right? That was my first instinct. And the guy who told me that the senior chief was like, hey, Doug's a turd from lifting and lying.
Right.
He goes, hey, what you need to do is do all the new guy stuff. And I was like, no. I go, fuck this. I go, I know who I am. I go, he'll figure it out soon enough. I go, I'm not changing what I do. I ended up being fishing buddies with my senior chief.
Oh, nice.
It took a while, but he figured it out.
Yeah, he figured it out.
Yeah.
You're a good guy.
Yeah.
You weren't.
That's how you prove to people who you are.
Yeah.
You maintain integrity.
Yeah, you just maintain course.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because, the other side of it is I don't want to, provide any psychological profiling on a person I've never talked to before, but I could see the possibility.
But here's my psychological profiling.
Right. Here's me going outside the lines. I see, that a person could want to clear his name aggressively if he knows he fucked up and didn't like the fact that he fucked up. And I'm not saying that applies here, but I'm saying it could be a possible influencer in somebody who has that behavior to say, you know what, this got blown way out of proportion in comparison to what the reality was because the situation was this person was probably most likely going to bleed out because he was dead when we started working on him.
You take a mild-mannered response.
And going the extra mile in the wrong direction and taking the wrong action and then being having remorse for it, having guilt for it, etc., and then having everything blow out of proportion. That seems reasonable to me that you're pissed off then at the people who initiated that whole thing to go after them.
But even if, let's just take a scenario. Let's just say they completely made everything up. Everything was 100% fictitious.
Yeah.
Clear your name. You don't put other people in the mud. Like, that never works.
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting situation, though, because the other people testified directly against you, and if you're in the position of they made up lies to try to slander you or take your liberty away for a number of years. I mean, we're not talking about, going to prison where you get paroled in 3 years when you're accused of whatever, and then you get out early for good behavior. We're talking about a military prison, and I was a military prison escort for a while, and that shit is no joke. That is, you march everywhere, you double time everywhere, you hit your toes on this line, or you're doing push-ups or whatever it is, or they're giving you demerits. Yes or no, sir. It's no bullshit. I mean, you want to talk about how hard prison is. You have the danger of the other prisoners because you're so slack. There is no slackness in a military prison.
Yeah.
It is fucking hard ass life, and you're talking about individuals who create testimony that could put you there. If any of that's incorrect, one of the natural tendencies that any law enforcement individual will tell you is when you have accused somebody wrongly of something, they'll fucking blow up at you sometimes. They will vehemently go, no way, you guys are fucking smoking crack. I did not do this. And a lot of times, an indicator of guilt is where somebody's a little calm about it, like, oh, what are you talking about? I could never, that's the guilty guy.
See, my experience is the opposite way. Usually if someone's not guilty, it's like, they're like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? In my experience, if someone is guilty, they tend to go emotional.
Okay.
Defensively emotional.
Because you tagged them.
Yeah, that's my first-hand experience.
You tagged them in their weak spot, which
Yeah.
is their
Maybe
own.
I flipped that in my mind. Then.
Yeah.
You might have because
one of them is an indicator, and the other one is
and it's usually when they get upset, because if it's an unrealistic scenario, that'd be like me accusing you of being like a black lady.
Okay.
You wouldn't get mad at me about
that. Wrong with being black lady, right? Guys, I don't have a problem.
It doesn't matter. It's not even remotely
but
true.
If you accuse me to be a child molester or something, that doesn't even really make any sense. There's absolutely no foundation for that.
For a foster parent to be a molester, a state-registered foster parent under extreme scrutiny to be a child molester,
right,
that'd be a strange thing, right?
Yeah, it'd be a serious allegation if you had any proof.
It'd be a very serious allegation, and it wouldn't be to be taken lightly.
Yeah, sure.
But you wouldn't get pissed off unless you were a child molester about to be found out.
If you know you have something to get in trouble for and your world could end, that's going to stir up a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Traditionally speaking.
Yeah, that's true.
If you know your world might end because
the chink in the armor.
Your choices, that's going to sting.
Yeah. Okay, I get that. And so you're just saying that if you're a stand-up dude who doesn't have any chinks in his armor, so to speak, which I know the attitude of Eddie on that podcast was, I was a squared away sailor, how I led was how I led, and maybe I made some mistakes, etc. But it seems like, I've met people like him who almost kind of put themselves on a pedestal, but not quite. But they're just like really confident in their abilities, really confident in their decisions, really confident in their leadership style, and don't really want to hear any suggestions on how to get better. That's a tough nut to crack. If you make a mistake and go off the beaten path and somebody calls you on it, yeah, I can see how you might go aggressive. I don't know, but you guys know the accusers here.
Yeah.
Right? That's the thing. You guys went through training with them. You spent how many months of time with these folks? Like, how well do you know?
Years.
I mean,
told them?
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing is we spent 12 to 18 hours a day.
Every day. Years straight.
With these guys. Like, you get to really know someone when you're being hypothermic, pissing your pants.
Or pissing their pants.
Or you're depending your life on somebody, because Dalton was my dive buddy.
Right.
Man, I almost drowned one night if it wasn't for him too. So it's hard for me to discard what I know of their character and trusting them on that level. Because trusting someone in Buds and SQT is honestly a little different than just having a teammate in your platoon. Like, it's really intimate in Buds and SQT.
Yeah, unit cohesion is almost completely dissoluted when you go into the team.
Yeah, because it has to be rebuilt. And it's hard to recreate a lot of the high-stress environments like in Buds.
Okay. So, basically, you're lending a lot of credibility to a testimony of an individual that you spent multiple months with, 18 hours a day, saying, in your position is, if this guy said something is wrong, or he said that this guy did something inappropriate, I'm gonna want to believe him.
I tend to believe there's a percentage of everything he said that had to be true. Could be wrong, but I mean, from what I know of him, there had to be some level of truth to what he was saying.
It's face value.
Yes.
And one of the accusations was that, the accusation was that he killed this Iraqi or Afghani kid. But the other accusations that came out later, because there was a question of whether or not they were going to get a conviction based on, someone killing an ISIS fighter when you send them over to kill ISIS fighters. The other accusations that came out were that he were shooting civilians indiscriminately or things like that. Do those types of things, have you known other individuals that have been that type of...
So they do exist, and it's an unhealthy state of mind, and it usually gets hopefully gets addressed to some degree at some point.
Usually that person gets a leash put on them.
Right. So there's not it's not like that thing just happens organically and then goes unaddressed for any extended period of time. There's at least a very low level amount of oversight, even if it's just their team lead or something. Somebody's like, yo, keep an eye on that dude because he's beating up homeless people when he's out drinking. But
I know what you're saying. It's hard to describe.
It's such a complicated issue because if they those guys aren't self-righteous, but like we said, we know those guys that were making accusations, and they're not so confused or misinformed or completely aloof about their surroundings,
right,
that if something so egregious was occurring, that they would not have said something out of the gate.
Right.
So that's weird. This is why the fact that the public was involved period, has completely ruined our ability to determine any kind of amount of accuracy from this on either side.
Yeah.
Because they both have perfectly reasonable platforms, while the other one is wildly lying out their ass, and they both have perfectly reasonable platforms in some form or fashion, why they are totally fucking off base themselves, and it doesn't make any sense. I can't see Dalton being in a position where he's personally feels unsafe or compromised on an internal level is real, or Craig or Corey. And then they sit through the rest of one of the most aggressive combat surges in all of recent combat history, and they just kind of ride it out. That's fucking outrageous. Why wouldn't have they said something if it was that bad? If it was so bad that it warranted this kind of proceedings? So none of it jives. I honestly can't figure out who's lying more and what they're lying about.
Right. Well, hopefully we'll get more of this story revealed, because Gallagher has promised that he is going to release the testimony recordings done under deposition of the testimony to show how it had changed over time, which, granted, memory
they've done so many studies on this.
It already doesn't matter
even
anymore.
if it's truth. People can't remember the same story the same way.
That's a fact about
truth and lying.
Right, but he's going to release the recordings and
it's not a good argument.
and have a whole bunch of evidence that supposedly helps exonerate him.
If someone has half a brain,
you
shouldn't wait someone changing their story. That much.
It's just
you can't,
man. It's sad because Andy's trying to help himself and he's hurting himself. I wish he'd pay attention to the fact that, from a common sense standpoint, he's not telling it to other team guys. He's not arguing his reputation to other team guys. He's out of the teams now. If you want to argue your reputation to the public, argue it to the same people that watch the Keeping Up with the Kardashians and The Bachelorette. You're talking to an audience that is taking you for the most simplistic, reduction of your strategy,
Right.
and your strategy is definitively one of the least effective ones in recorded history over data-driven, empirical data-driven analysis of personal defense. This does not work. Like, find a better way to clear yourself. If it's really clear, it shouldn't be difficult for you to.
Smear campaigns are only going to work for the bottom tier IQ level, honestly. Not to be mean, but like, man, if you can't see through the fog, then
Yeah.
don't give me your opinion.
All right, so let me ask you this question. What is your opinion on the corpsman who took the stand under immunity and then said, I killed him?
That's just confusing.
Yeah. Is that, now, do you guys know who that is?
I don't know.
I know Corey. Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, so Corey says he put his finger over the breathing tube, or the trach tube, the chest tube, and he's the one who killed him because if he was going to turn him over to the in-country fighters, they were going to just basically.
But why did
dismember
Eddie
him.
say he killed him then in a text to somebody?
I don't think he did. I think he said got one with my hunting knife. So he could have very well be. And this is me playing my own criminal defense, like I basically have done my entire life. I'd be like, yeah, I got a picture of a dead terrorist with me carrying my hunting knife.
Yeah, but I mean, the implication in his sentence was that he.
He's
Killed him with
like,
the knife.
yeah, got one with my hunting knife. Oh, I ended up snapping a picture of a dead terrorist and me in the picture with my hunting knife. Maybe the guy that he sent it to made that knife for him.
But here's the thing: I don't know a lot of
Yeah.
guys that would make up a lie like that.
Maybe it wasn't a lie. Maybe he was literally talking about that picture.
But I'm just saying that he probably killed him with a knife. Why would someone make that up? What SEAL with a reputation, like who's actually gone to combat and done stuff, would have to make up a story like that, in which it would get
That's why
found out real quick.
None of it makes sense. Why would
No.
somebody text something like that?
I mean, that lines up with the smear campaign moves, but
There's a lot of shades of gray in this.
No,
So
it's pitch black at this point.
yeah.
there's a lot of well, exactly. There's a big shadow that's cast over this whole thing that I'm not sure we'll ever get to the complete truth of what was going on inside the minds of the
Yeah.
individuals, because there's so many individuals that did so many weird things.
I do understand Corey's state of mind, though, and that might be the one that I understand most because he was given immunity, and after so many months and so much public sight,
Yeah.
if he cares about the SEAL teams, if he cares about anybody implicated whatsoever on either side,
Yep.
if he cares about his own credibility and he cares about his future goings on and endeavors related to this job,
Yeah.
his best bet was to put that shit to bed as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the smartest move
Yes.
made in this entire goddamn thing. I get pure immunity. I can't be charged for anything. Got
I did
it.
it.
Got it. Here's what's going to end this. He's being charged for murder. I killed him.
Yeah, because I don't care who you
It's
are.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, man, just do what you can to not make the SEAL teams look bad, and that's not what's happening.
More times than not, the medics, the guys that choose to go to the medic course, those guys care a fuck ton about what they do. It is very rare that those guys, I mean,
Gallagher went to 18 Delta.
I get it. Exactly. He cares a fuck ton about what he does, which is why he's still fighting tooth and nail to maintain a reputation for people that booted him. But have you met many medics that don't absolutely fucking with a burning passion love exactly what they're doing?
No, they're usually the most squared away.
So you know what Corey's doing right now when he's on the stand every fucking day and can't talk to anybody in the teams? He spent all these years of his life gaining all this experience, and he's just getting to a point where now he is a senior mentor in a field that is definitively filled with dudes that have an unprecedented fiery passion for what they do.
Yeah.
He's sitting in court with two completely incomprehensible nonsense goings on in the public eye, not doing the job that he just broke his back to achieve. So the only part of this that makes sense is what Corey said.
All right. Well, we're going to leave that there until we find more evidence, until Eddie Gallagher puts more stuff out on the internet that we can review and comment on, or until he wants to come on the show and say, hey, let's hash this out. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the discrepancies of, the likelihood of these guys that I knew, who I say probably wouldn't make up stuff about you. And what is your defense on that? Or maybe you'd like to voice your opinion
Yeah, I'd love
on
to.
this and that.
I'd love to get him on and talk to him.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely give him a fair shake. I mean, because there are so many shades of gray in this, and there are probably fault on all sides.
Oh, there has to be.
Because, exacerbating circumstances that leading up to the split and the rift in this particular team probably should have been handled well on both sides. It should have been handled a lot better on both sides of all the parties involved. And so, that is ultimately the first domino that started this whole thing, regardless of what happened in that moment of that day that's in question. Let's hash that out. I don't know. Let us know. We hope this message finds you guys well. Hit that subscribe button, the like, and share this stuff because we offer a unique perspective that a lot of folks can't even touch. We love you guys. Talk to you soon. Peace.